Hello friends and welcome to today's video. In the last video, we told the story of the aircraft carrier HMS Hermes, numbered 95. However, that's not the end of the story. There are two other events directly or indirectly related to this ship, which we will talk about today. The first one took place during the war. One of the war tactics is to try to confuse the enemy, for example, by converting a ship whose sinking would not be so crucial for you to make it look like an important naval target. This is precisely the case with the merchant steamer SS Mamari III. The ship was sold to the Admiralty in September 1939 for military service during World War II and was disguised to pass as the British aircraft carrier HMS Hermes as potential bait. In this guise, she was named Fleet Tender C and fulfilled her role as bait conscientiously. On June 4, 1941, while en route to Chatham Docks in Kent to be converted back into a cargo ship, she was attacked by German aircraft off the English coast near Cromer in Norfolk. While trying to evade the attack, it struck the submerged wreck of the Ahamo, which had struck a mine on April 8 of that year, causing the Mamari to run aground. However, the crew was rescued by the tugboat Sabine and landed in Grimsby. A plan was devised to salvage and refloat the ship. However, before this could be done, the stranded ship was torpedoed by German boats. The Hermes itself survived the Mamari by only 10 months before being sunk by the Japanese off Sri Lanka. Another event connected with Hermes took place after the war. In March 1961, a memorial service was held in memory of HMS Hermes 95. This event was held in honor of its predecessor, the British aircraft carrier HMS Hermes, with the numerical designation R12. A simple but very symbolic ceremony took place at the site where Hermes sank. The entire ceremony was led by Captain Tibbets and two chaplains. Reverend Oates represented the Anglican Church, and Reverend Scott Curry represented the Scottish Church. The ceremony ended when the captain threw a memorial cross into the sea. Over the years, photographs of the Hermes wreck have been taken thanks to diving expeditions. And finally, as I mentioned in the previous video, the Hermes was not the only ship to bear this name. Hermes was the Dutch cutter Mercure that the Amsterdam Admiralty purchased in 1781 or 1782. Mercure was a brig when captured. Sylph captured her off the Texel in the action of the 12th of May 1796. After a chase during which Mercure threw all but 2 of her guns overboard. The Royal Navy commissioned her in July 1796 under Commander William Mulliso for the North Sea. Hermes disappeared during a gale on the 31st January 1797. She was presumed to have foundered with all hands. Hermes was the mercantile and launched at Shields in 1797. The British Royal Navy purchased her in 1798. And sold her in 1802 after the Treaty of Amiens. She then returned to mercantile service as a West Indiaman. The French captured her in 1805. Hermes was launched as the Mercantile Majestic at Whitby in 1801. The British Royal Navy purchased Majestic in 1803. She had an uneventful career, and the Navy sold her in 1810. Hermes was a 20-gun, Hermes-class 6th-rate flush-decked sloop of war built in Milford Dockyard to the lines of the ex-French Bon Citoyen. She was destroyed in 1814 to prevent her falling into American hands after grounding during her unsuccessful attack on Fort Boyer, on Mobile Point outside Mobile, Alabama. Hermes was a wooden paddle packet, originally in civilian service as George IV. She was purchased in 1830 as HMS Courier, renamed HMS Hermes in 1832 became a coal hulk, and was renamed HMS Charger in 1835, and was broken up in 1854. Hermes was a Hermes-class wooden paddle sloop of the Royal Navy. She was built at Portsmouth Dockyard. Initially, she was used as a packy vessel until her guns were upgraded. She was re-engined and lengthened in 1842 to 43. She spent time in various stations in the Empire. She participated in the storming of Rangoon during the Second Burmese War. She was sold for breaking in October 1864. The very impressive-looking third-rate 74 gunship was launched on 15 April 1816 as HMS Minotaur and became HMS Hermes in 1866. Despite a 53-year lifespan, she was never commissioned for sea service. Instead, she was put into reserve at Sheerness until 1842, then used as a receiving ship for naval conscripts. 1st of April 1859 saw her as a guard ship in Sheerness Harbor commanded by Captain Edward Palu Halstead. And in 1861 she was converted into a holding ship for passengers from merchant vessels suspected of bringing in disease cholera. 5 years later she was sailed to Gravesend to serve as a hospital ship for cholera when in July 1866 she became HMS Hermes before being broken up 3 years later at Sheerness Dockyard. Hermes was a high Fleer-class protected cruiser built for the Royal Navy in the 1890s. She spent much of her early career as flagship for various foreign stations before returning home in 1913 to be assigned to the Reserve Third Fleet. The ship was modified later that year as the first experimental seaplane carrier in the Royal Navy. In that year's annual fleet maneuvers, she was used to evaluate how aircraft could cooperate with the fleet and if aircraft could be operated successfully at sea for an extended time. She was recommissioned at the beginning of World War I in August 1914 for service as an aircraft ferry and depot ship for the Royal Naval Air Service. She was torpedoed and sunk by a German submarine in the Straits of Dover that October, with the loss of 21 lives. The next ship in line is the Hermes 95. It is the first aircraft carrier built from the ground up for this purpose. We told the story of this ship in our last video. Hermes was a conventional British light aircraft carrier and the last of the Centaur class. Hermes was in service with the Royal Navy from 1959 until 1984, and she served as the flagship of the British forces during the 1982 Falklands War. After being sold to India in 1986, the vessel was recommissioned and remained in service with the Indian Navy as in Surat until 2017. Hermes is the name given to the Queen Elizabeth Class aircraft carrier ship control center training simulator, situated in the Defense School of Marine Engineering. The simulator was built by L3 and is a representation of the ship control center of the class and is used to train ship staff and machinery operation principles. Friends, that's all from our chronicle for now. I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and I look forward to seeing you again with another story.